Hi everyone, so I wasn't intending to necessarily start this week's series, set of videos, whatever, with the woman to woman video, but I just woke up this morning and I really felt like talking about it, so I hope you don't mind. Usually I like to kind of have them in the middle of the week with a beauty video in between. I just feel like that kind of works better, but I just felt like talking about this today, and it's a topic that's kind of received a lot of attention online recently, and that is to do with the new Barbie dolls. So the kind of different shapes and sizes, different ethnicities Barbies that have kind of been introduced. I don't think any new ethnicities have been introduced in kind of the new ones that pictures of them kind of surfacing around online. That had happened a few years ago, and obviously rightfully so. But there are kind of like taller Barbies, shorter Barbies, fuller figured Barbies, curvier Barbies, basically just different representations of bodies on the traditional Barbie. And it's something that's kind of received a lot of hype online, and I'm going to kind of back up a little bit and just talk to you about my opinion on Barbie in general. And I, as a child, was a huge Barbie fan, and I'm not sure if a lot of it kind of stemmed from the fact that I wasn't actually allowed to play with Barbies until I was probably, the first one I probably got, I was probably about 6, and I was obsessed. I loved them. I thought they were just beautiful and girly, and kind of, you know, I was a really, really girly little girl, as you can imagine. And my mum is kind of quite right on and quite kind of feminist, and she didn't want me to play with Barbie. She didn't think that they were very healthy, and she just didn't like them. But I really, really, really wanted one, and every time I'd go to a friend's house, I was like, you know, when you're not allowed something and it just kind of intensifies it. That's kind of what happened to me. And then when I started going to school, I really had trouble settling in, and as a reward she promised she'd buy me a Barbie, but staying true to herself, she actually bought me a Cindy doll. And I can remember being so disappointed because this Cindy doll had flat shoes, she had like Doc Marten style boots, and she just kind of had like, I think she even had dreads. She kind of had like her hair in like dreads, and she was super cool. Now looking back at it, she was a really cool doll, but it was not what I wanted. She didn't have, you know, the high heels and the glitter, and she just wasn't at all what I really wanted. And I think my mum kind of found the most normal looking doll she could find and bought me that one because she just didn't really believe in it. But I really, really wanted Barbie. I loved Barbie. And then one day we went to my cousin's house, who was quite a bit older than me, and she had loads and loads of Barbies. We didn't go there very often because, like I said, she was probably like, I must have been like, I don't know, 7 or 8 at the time, and she was probably like 16, so we didn't hang out there because she was too old to be playing with me anyway. And she came down with this big massive box. It was like a huge crate full of all her Barbie stuff from when she was a kid, and it had Barbie cars, Barbie houses, millions of outfits, loads of dolls, and she gave it to me. And my mum couldn't kind of say, no, I don't let my child play with that kind of thing, so we graciously accepted it. I was dying of happiness inside, went home, and that was it. My mum had lost the battle against Barbie because I had everything. And then I was so into them. I had loads and loads of Barbies. I even remember there being this beautiful Barbie that I really, really wanted. She was black, and she was beautiful. She looked like Naomi Campbell, and she had this beautiful kind of really elaborate sparkly dress. It was one of those kind of like, I think some people collect those type of Barbies, but she was a really fancy Barbie. And I can remember being in the shop and being this small child looking up at it. It was on the top shelf because it was really expensive, and just wanting that Barbie so badly. And then I think in the end, for my birthday, my dad bought me it. My dad didn't mind the Barbie thing at all. My dad used to buy me loads of Barbie related things. Every time we'd go away on business trips, he'd come back and I had like the Barbie car, and I had like a purple Barbie Jeep that you could sit the Barbies in, and it had a remote control. I was obsessed, much to my mum's dismay. She kind of really didn't encourage it, but I really loved them. And I think that I also played with them till quite an old age, but it wasn't that I played. I don't think I usually played kind of house with them. I just loved them because they were so beautiful, and the clothes were so beautiful, and their hair was perfect, and I just loved kind of putting different outfits on them. Playing Barbie Wedding was my favourite. My Barbies got married, like, you know, on a daily basis. Funnily enough, I never liked Ken. My Barbies always married my brother's Action Man dolls. I stand by that. I think Action Man's way cooler than Ken. Ken's a bit wussy. And yeah, I was really, really into them. But at no point did I ever feel like Barbie made me feel bad about my looks. Did I ever remember feeling like Barbie had made me not like myself, or like I wished I looked like her? She was beautiful, but it was in the same way as like Disney princesses were beautiful. It didn't compel me to kind of feel anything about myself. It's just they were what they were and I was what I was. And that was coming from a child who was very, very self-aware, very kind of into looks. And obviously I loved Barbie because she was so pretty and everything was so glamorous and perfect and lovely. And it wasn't that I wanted to be like her. She was just an imaginary toy, because kind of so much of what you play when you're a kid is imaginary, right? And I can completely understand people's issues with Barbie. I can completely understand that like her physical anatomy is just wouldn't make sense in real life. You know, nobody can stand on their tiptoes like that. She would topple over. Her boobs were ridiculously big for her frame. Her waist was ridiculously tiny. The super long legs. I can completely appreciate that. But then I also think kind of there's so many toys that are like that, like Action Man. How many men in real life do you know that are as ripped as Action Man? Ripped, sorry, not ribbed. What am I talking about? I don't really know any. And who have that kind of, you know, masculine jaw and that kind of rugged good looks. You know, few and far between, isn't it? And I don't really know of any little boys that kind of have grown up thinking, I wish I looked like Action Man. Same goes for kind of later on. My sisters, for example, didn't really play with Barbies. They were of the Bratz generation. And again, how many people do you know that actually look like Bratz? They have huge, huge heads, first of all. Their features are all really, really exaggerated. They're like massive eyes and everything. Their feet come off. It's an imaginary toy is kind of how I like to look at it. But I do think that kind of introducing lots and lots of different options for Barbie is great, because as much as I didn't feel like it affected me in any way, I'm sure there are children that it does affect. There's lots and lots of studies about it kind of causing a unrealistic standard of beauty, which, you know, we're surrounded by things that cause that. But a lot of the time I think it's very easy to blame celebrities and to blame models and dolls even as kind of culprits of that, when it's more to do with kind of our society as a whole and more to do with individual people and how happy you are with yourself. And it's not something that I think most I can only kind of speak for myself and slightly generalise here, but I don't really know anyone that I feel was really affected by how Barbie looked, because it was pretend. And it's like how if you're into kind of beauty and into everything looking nice, I'm really like that as a person. You know, my house always has to look really nice. I'm a little bit of a clean freak. I even like make the bed in a way that I like it to look really nice and perfect. I'm just like that as a person. I need things around me to be aesthetically pleasing. It makes me happy. And Barbie was just kind of an extension of that as a child. And while I can completely understand that kind of it's not the best idea to give children things like that to aspire to be, I don't actually think that most children see it from that perspective. I think that we as adults project that onto these toys because we look at them and think, like, she's so perfect, look how she looks. We recognise that. And when you're a kid, what's wrong with wanting to play with things that are a little bit fantasy? You know, like princesses and dinosaurs and all that kind of thing are imaginary too. It's not necessarily something that's kind of too serious, I think, for children. But I do think that it's a great thing to kind of introduce different options out there. What I would be interested to know is, lined up what would the average little girl choose? Which Barbie would she go for? The glitz and the glam Barbie or the everyday Barbie? Because that was something I noticed that I found quite interesting with the images that are online, and if you Google it, there's lots and lots of different ones, and lots of kind of different pictures, but all the ones I'd seen, they were kind of dressed like every day. They all just had like, you know, a denim skirt on and that kind of thing. They weren't really glammed up glitzy Barbies. I'm assuming that they probably will come with lots of different outfits so you can kind of pick and choose. I'm assuming, I don't actually know that, which was something that I found quite interesting, because I kind of think it's the glitz and the glamour usually that appeals to the child, not necessarily the doll itself. It's kind of the all-around image, and these ones kind of weren't as glamorous as traditional Barbies are, so I found that quite interesting. I'm not sure kind of what the premises behind that was. Maybe it was just those images that have been released in those outfits, and there will be lots of different outfits, I presume. You know, it's not going to be they only have one outfit, is it? But it's like when people kind of complain about why did Barbie always wear high heels, because it's glamorous. When you were a kid, didn't you always want to wear high heels? Like, I have a mum who's not into beauty at all. She doesn't even own a pair of high heels, never has done. And every time I'd go to my aunt's house, who did have loads of high heels, I would be so happy that I could wear them and pretend I was grown up. It's more about the pretending to be grown up, because that's what grown up ladies do type of thing. And I can understand that there's maybe a problem that comes from that, because there isn't as much variety and choice in, you can be any type of woman you want to be, and you don't necessarily have to be all glitz and glamour. But there's nothing wrong with liking glitz and glamour either. And I was definitely like that as a child. I mean, I loved, like, I still do, all the old musicals, because the women in them always looked so glamorous and ladylike, and kind of all the like stars of the past, like Marilyn and Liz Taylor and like just Eva Gardner and people like that. I used to watch those with my grandma. She still watches them now, actually. When I went to visit her, she wasn't very well, and she was sitting in bed and we were watching an old Eva Gardner movie, and she said, do you know, if my grandma's, she looks nothing like me at all. She's blonde. Well, she's not naturally blonde, but she's dyed her hair blonde all her life. But I think in her head she thinks she's naturally blonde, and she's super glamorous, and she never leaves the house without her lipstick on, and she's really well put together. And we were watching this film, and she said, do you know, if I had to pick out of anyone in the world who I could have looked like when I was younger, it would be Eva Gardner. And I was like, really? See, if I had to pick from kind of like stars of the past, I think it would probably be Elizabeth Taylor. Young Elizabeth Taylor was like strikingly gorgeous, and she was like, yeah, you look a bit like her now. And I was like, I don't, but thank you. And I think sometimes it's just a certain personality that's kind of into that glitz and glamour, and it doesn't necessarily kind of come always from a place of insecurity. It comes from a place of passion. And I painted my nails last night, random thing. I'm wearing Essie's Big Spender, and I painted them, and then I kept looking at them. My boyfriend was like, why are you staring at your hands? And I said, it's just when I like have nice nails, I feel like I talk with my hands more, and I'm like more expressive, because I just like how they look. And he was like, you're such a weirdo. But it's kind of like, it's a passion, and that's what Barbie was to me. And I still, when we go to shops, can get a bit like, oh, look how pretty she is. We were in, when I went to visit my mum, we went into Home Bargains, which FYI is a really cool shop. They have really cool things in there. And we're with my little sister who's 12, and she doesn't play with Barbie. She's, you know, too big for that really. And we were walking down the toy section because she wanted to buy a magic, it was like a kit that you did magic tricks with, that we said that we'd buy her. And we walked past, and there was this Barbie, and she was beautiful. She had like this red and gold dress. She was one of the fancy Barbies. And I said to my sister, wow, look at her. And she was like, yeah, she's pretty. And just carried along and didn't. And I was like, she's so pretty. And my boyfriend was like, do you want to buy her? It was like, we could buy her and like put her on display in the living room. And he was like, no, we're not going to do that. But I love Barbie, like any Barbie. It's the glamour that I love, not necessarily the doll itself. It's just kind of everything being beautiful and so aesthetically pleasing and imaginary, just like Disney princesses. You know, they're always beautiful. They don't look like real people half the time. They all have huge eyes, which, like nobody really has. And you know, they're usually always really slim, which again, I do think maybe that needs to be addressed, and there should be more diversity in the ethnicities of the Disney princesses and Barbies alike. I think that's very, very important, and just ridiculous that kind of it hasn't always been that way, because hello, this is a big world and there's lots of different people in it. But I just really, I don't know how I feel about this. I think it is a really good thing that there are options out there, but I don't ever think that they can kind of just replace traditional Barbie for a lot of little girls. I might be wrong, you know, I'm seeing this from a perspective of how I was as a little girl. I don't know that many little girls now, and a lot of the ones I know happen to be quite kind of tomboyish, so of course the house phone. So that interruption was probably cue for me to start wrapping this up anyway, because otherwise it'll just be a really long video. But yeah, my bottom line is I'm not sure how I feel about this. Part of me thinks maybe it's just a bit of a publicity stunt, because I don't really think Barbie's kind of the it toy for most kids nowadays necessarily anyway. I mean, thinking of like any friends I've got that have children, none of them are really that into Barbies. And I think that probably if I have daughters, you know, I'd really want to kind of introduce them to Barbies, because it was hours of fun for me, but maybe that's just kind of how I was, and it's not necessarily a thing anymore. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts down below, and anything that you kind of have been feeling about the topic, kind of if you've seen it online or that kind of thing. It's just a really kind of interesting development in something that hasn't been at kind of the forefront of the public eye nowadays. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you did, and let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!